My parents owned this property and a camp that was here before this was built. And then they're deceased, and my parents own this now, which is recently built like 10 years ago. And where we are, we're not near any sort of city water. And a common solution around here is well water. So this is a little video about how we get our water for our camp here, which is actually a spring. Now, where we are is at the bottom of a hill, and there's a river there, and that's navigable deep enough for us to use boats in, which is really nice. No, I'm not going to tell you where it is. And we're at the bottom of a hill that's about 400 feet tall. Maybe a mile that way, it's an extra 400 feet above us. So we're at the bottom of the water table here, and there are springs. And I'll show you our spring system. For the system, I guess I'll start with one of the most visible portions. This is the overflow from our storage tank. And this overflow goes right into a bucket with a rock in it. And that's only to keep it quiet, because if it was draining straight into the sink, it'd be kind of loud. And there's people somewhat nearby, and water falling onto stainless steel is kind of loud and distracting. So this water goes down underneath the ground in a pipe and drains into the river. You can kind of hear it right about there. And this is the pump house. You may notice that it's a little bit crooked, and that's because it's been hit with ice at least 2 times that I know of. The ice will be above this roof sometimes. So in here we have a stainless tank and a salamander. This is like a dairy storage tank. And here is, I think this is about 500 gallons, maybe a bit more. And this feeds, I think 5 different cabins. Maybe more. It's hard to say, because there's a few different pump systems in here. But this is our pump system. And we have a 110 line that's run across the hill. Comes in here to an outlet. And then this is our pump. We're going to need to replace this pump sort of soon, because when it got ice over it this past spring, the bearings got messed up, so it's making loud noise. So the water that comes into here gets sucked up into our white tank there, and it has a one-way foot valve that goes into the jet pump. And the jet pump pressurizes through this flexible line, this pressure tank, and then from there it runs up to our cabin through that black pipe. In the winter, from about October through April, we have to disconnect and drain this system. In the spring, when we recommission it, we have to open this valve and fill up this tube to pram it. In the winter, when we drain it, we disconnect this black pipe at the cabin and open this drain here, and the water siphons out through there. The overflow is here that comes from the bottom of the tank. And you can't really see it because of the reflection. Some cabins or camps use submersible pumps. These would be pumps that would go into like a well. And if their pipe is insulated and heated, like this camp's is, then it can be used all year. Where we are, it gets down to about 0 degrees Fahrenheit sometimes in the winter. So you really have to have a prepared system and a prevented, frost prevented system like what they have. The spring head is up in there. You can't see it because it's flush with the ground. Maybe a little bit higher, but it's covered with leaf litter right now. And it's just like a 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot concrete block pit with a pipe running out of it. And that pipe is what runs under the ground and into the spring shed. And then overflows into the bucket and then down to the river. Now I'm curious how many gallons per minute this flows. So let's measure. And this is the noise that bucket's preventing. So that's kind of irritating. This is a 5-gallon bucket, and we're at 6:02 in the video. And that's overflowing, so that's 8:48 in my video. This flow is, I'd say it's kind of like average. Ooh, this bucket's kind of aging. Anyways, this is potable water, although some people in my family say it doesn't agree with them, but I've never had an issue drinking it. It is tested yearly, and it comes back potable every year. And I'll calculate how many gallons per minute that is and put it right somewhere in here. This flow is, I'd say, like average. Sometimes it gets lower, sometimes it gets more. It's the end of spring or end of summer right now, early fall, and we've had quite a bit of rain recently. So this is maybe kind of high for summer flow, and we've never had an issue with running out of water here, even with 5 cabins. And like 4th of July weekend, everybody will be here, everybody will be using it, and we never have an issue with running out of water. Here we are about 200 feet from the spring building, which is down over there, and the water line comes over here. And we have a filter here. After heavy rainflow, we can get some sediment in there, so that filter takes care of any sediment. And then it comes down here, and here's where it enters our cabin. Like I said, we just shut this off, disconnect it, and then, well, I don't know, something like that, and drain the whole cabin during the winter and winterize it. And during the winter, we just have to use 5-gallon buckets for our water, and we fill them up under that overflow that I showed you earlier. The hill behind our cabin is fairly steep. There's actually a road that runs up right here. And that, I don't know, it's just a really interesting feature of this property. So I hope you like that. Hit the subscribe button that I'm going to put right here, and I'll see you. Goodbye.